Hi, and welcome to the 2 Minute Warning. I am your host, Perry Busby. The 2 Minute Warning is brought to you by the West Side Gazette, one of South Florida's oldest African American owned newspapers that has been serving the community for 50 years. And here to join us tonight is the publisher of the West Side Gazette, my good friend, Mr. Bobby Henry. Bobby, how you doing, my brother?
Again, Mr. Busby, I am terrific and getting better. I'm still celebrating before we go anywhere. I just have to do this. And that goes out to all the brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And I just want to say happy Founders Day, which was on yesterday, November 17, 1911. We've been around for a while doing some great things. And I just want to give a shout out to all of my Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated brothers. Good evening, y'all. So what's happening, Peter? Yeah. I'm done with that. I did that.
No, and I know some good Omega brothers. So just want to give my shout out of celebration to you brothers as well and for all you do. Man, it's a lot going on around. I can't say a lot of it's new, but it's just a lot of it. A lot of stuff. See, there you go. There you go. No, but man, a lot is going on. At least now we have an official winner in the Congressional District 20 race. We'll get more into that later, but we've got several high-profile legal cases that are some are winding down and others are getting more interesting. And you got lawyers telling black preachers they can't go anywhere, and black preachers
oh man,
waking up like Samson and saying, "Let me get down there and go." So I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. I was on another show on the hashtag Let It Be Known with Dr. Chavis and Stacey Brown. We had an opportunity to talk with Congresswoman Karen Bass. But I understand and I appreciate the black clergy getting involved. But I like the art of war. I don't think we should always broadcast what we're going to do. Sometimes they'll lay in the cut and be ready for it. But
right.
Surprise, surprise. But I'm glad. I'm
yes,
glad. It's time for us to stand up, man.
No,
and recognize, for real.
Exactly, and I mean, and none of us really want to be that family, and so the Arbery family, and so I mean, when you're feeling like that, I haven't been through it, and I like a lot of support around me, even in some lesser challenging times. So I can only imagine.
Absolutely. Then you got that case over in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
The judge threw out the gun charge. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on over there, man. I mean, it's like they have snatched the blinds, the curtains down. There is the curtain has been torn.
Right.
And Mr. Wizard is being revealed for what he or she is.
Right.
And poor Joy. I mean, the other side of the media is trying to drag Joy Reid through the mud.
Oh man.
That's and we got to stand up for our sister.
Yes.
That sister pulled the scab off the wound. She's not playing, man. And I do believe that Rittenhouse, he should get an Academy Award for his action, if you will. So.
Yeah. Well, and to some degree, even the guy down in Georgia, the son who's gotten up and tried to speak as one with authority and understanding how to, knowing police procedures and just blatantly overstepping the fact that you know you're out of your lane.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misrepresented myself. I spoke. Yeah, come on, man.
Right? Yeah, you
Mm-hmm,
went there. You went there because you wanted to prove a point.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You
And
know.
it's time for people, all of us, across party lines, color lines. If we don't stand up for what's right, we're gonna fall down to anything. And
Yeah.
all of that is happening now. Did you pay attention to how many people were killed the past couple of days in gun violence and all this other stuff? That's at a concert, somebody using the potty right on stage, and man, it's just what's happening, Perry? Help me out now.
Yeah.
What's going on, man? Mhm.
Well, as they would say, that's just the world being the world, and so you know, if I'm a deal with that, I mean, we got some serious issues, and yes, it sounds and looks lewd, but it's nothing more lewd than what's happening even right now in Congress.
Hmm.
You know, the fact that we saw people ride a building and put our government in peril. And even now, even though there's been this warrant for Bannon's arrest, Bannon walked up with glee.
Hmm.
And and I don't know a brother who's ever walked to court smiling about what's about to go down.
Just wait. Just wait. We're not done yet. Just wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Dr. Chavis, Benjamin Chavis, the CEO of the NNPA, was in Wilmington. Was it Wilmington?
Yeah, Wilmington, Delaware.
He did this. I think it was 1829. Probably the first form of a resurrection, if you will, when they marched into I think it was Wilmington, to dismantle that which had taken place in an election of some black folk. And they went in there and they killed a lot of people and just, wreaked havoc. So January 6th was like compared to 18, I think it was 29, that was the date. But yeah, man. Yeah, so it's nothing new that they do when they want to do what they do.
Yeah. It's amazing how history tends to lose fact of white aggression and white riots, and especially in this, and I think they're more afraid of that in this critical race theory than they are about the uplifting of blacks. They're going, hey, don't make our children feel bad. Don't let them know we was all these big assholes,
And then they come up with this. What do they call it? Is it? Oh Lord, some kind of learning. I can't think. Okay. Anyway, they don't want mental health authorities in the school system, nor do they want transgender topics being brought up. They just want to do away with everything except them. But okay, Perry, let's do this. Man, I read an article in the West Side Gazette this week. Kind of shook me up a little bit. Black politics in Broward. Is it chess or NBA 2K22? And it was written by a good friend of mine. You want to comment on that before you do? Good evening, Miss Bumpkins. How you doing? Come on, man. Give us some insight on that, man. That was right on time, Perry. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bobby. No, it's no, I guess it's just all my years of dealing with politics. Like I said, I've just been around it a long time, and I'm trying not to be jaded when you see certain things, and I was in a conversation the other day, and a young man said, "But it's all a game." And I said, "I agree." And his eyes got wide. I said, it is a game. It's a game. What's the rules? I mean, if you're going to engage in any game, the first thing you must know is the rules. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he's like, well, I don't know the rules. I say, then what game is it like? Is it kickball? Is it basketball? What is it? You know, right? Is it tonk? I don't know. I mean, you tell me. And but it had me thinking about it. So you hear a lot. You hear the analogy all the time that politics is more chess than checkers. Which I think is interesting, and I think maybe it's more. I think checkers may be more what black politics is. And if that's offensive, hey, I mean, I'm just saying it's my experience. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of jumping, moving, and and that's fine. It's nothing against checkers, like it. But I think it's more like chess. And I'm not a great chess player, but chess players come with a lot of different disciplines. And so, in doing some research about it, there's a lot to the game chess that's just like politics. And part of it is having a strategy coming into the game. And then having good tactics. Mm-hmm. You got to know how to bluff. You got to know when to move. You got to know when to give something up that looks like it's a value only to get a greater value in return. And I just don't see it. And I mean, people can get mad at me, but that's what the people in the street say, which is why they call it a game, because they call it a bad game. Because they don't see any winning, and then when people tell them, and we get to this other part where we begin to define for people what they winning is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just like, we for infrastructure. But when you start drilling down and you start looking at some of the things, and I'm hopeful that this will address this problem that's happening in a lot of areas. I went home to Beaumont, Texas, a couple of weeks ago. Tried to get a hotel, and I'm thinking, this is Beaumont. 3 of the hotels were booked through March, and the lady said, "Sir, we're not going to have any rooms till the spring because we're booked by construction workers and visiting nurses." Mm-hmm. So now you got a city whose one of their biggest revenues is the hotel tax, but you're bringing in your quality resources. And so what happens with infrastructure is some of the people who get these contracts, they not only do they have the cement, they have all the ancillary businesses that go with it. And so they give this one to their cousin, they give this one to their wife, they do all of this, and it boxes us out. So yeah, we hip hooray in infrastructure. When we look back down to it, we'll get, for some of us, it won't benefit us at all. Mm-hmm. It'll benefit the community, and I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying when it comes down to bread and butter, and when you're trying to get people who are already jaded in the system to believe in the system, you got to put some meat on that bone.
Mm-hmm. Let me do this. You just put a whole lot into this chess game of politics, if you will. You said something in your piece that got me. You said, after the November 2020 election, black voters in Broward surely must have thought that they had pulled off the infamous Scandinavian Defense when African Americans won 5 countywide races: sheriff, state attorney, the public defender, the clerk of courts, and the supervisor of elections, to go along with the 35 plus judicial and
Municipality.
thank you, seats, I appreciate it, brother, held by African Americans. Now you said a mouthful when you said that, period. So here we gained 5 seats, and here in this set of things now, it looks like we're giving up 6 seats just to get 1. So in this game of chess, the Scandinavian defense seemed to have failed to your position. I mean, it turned out for the worst.
And that's what they say. I mean, but the Scandinavian defense is the defense that beginners use. And one of the reasons why. Well, I mean, that's what chess. I mean, in chess, in the world of chess, it's a game that beginners use, and primarily you use the Scandinavian defense because you don't know how to have a strategy.
Mr. Busby, are you equating the skill of well, no, they're not beginners. They're just well, anyway.
No, I'm saying the black vote. I'm not saying any particular. I'm not saying any particular candidate, but I'm just saying when we talk about, black representation as a whole, we will have to see how effective this has been. I mean, we hope to get. Well, we will get a voice in 3 of those seats. For the Senate race, for the 2 state representative races, the one here in Broward that was held by Representative Bobby DuBose, and the Palm Beach, West Palm seat that was held by Representative Amari Hardy. My only concern with this, and again, I look at numbers when you and so what will happen in this January election will be that we will get a small microcosm of the community. If we thought that the turnout was low for Representative Hastings' seat, a man who had wide name credibility, when you start looking at some of these races, then and again, it's no disrespect to any other candidates, their ability to generate that sort of return from the community is not going to be as strong, and you're going to end up with hopefully someone who's a good leader.
Okay.
And again, that's not. I think all the candidates are qualified candidates. Not saying that, just saying in terms of effectiveness. And if we are looking at what Republicans are doing, how they are now looking at school board seats and now infiltrating election, the election positions in states and counties. They're doing it with intent. And so we have to ask, what are we intending to do other than, take the next available seat? That's all.
Okay. We got some interesting things coming up and happening based upon the article that was written in the Senate about the seats being filled that's coming up, and the governor has an opportunity to appoint to the seat. It's all well and good, but let's just do this. We got somebody who can educate us on what is happening in the landscape of elections here in Broward County, and we really want to see what's happening. So Perry, would you be so kind as to bring somebody on that could, perhaps bring some understanding to this, listen now. So it's coming.
Yeah. Ball of confusion.
So we in a mess right about now. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Come on, Perry. Who is our guest
That's
today?
right. Our guest is a true teacher. It's a young brother, man. As a matter of the fact, I met him around voting, and when I heard that I was out and I was heard, and over the crowd that that Joe Scott was running. I immediately went to him, introduced myself, and man, and we met, and man, just turned out to be a great brother. Um, uh, Not just in just being kind. I mean, he has shown his valor. He's shown he is a courageous brother. He is a West Point graduate, received the Bronze Star during the tour of duty in Iraq. He's also a good brother because we found out that we also were in the tech field together. So that was always a partial thing for me, and I was glad to see him come out victorious, and glad to know that he's at the helm of things. I think he's a good, solid brother. And that is the Broward Supervisor of Election, Joe Scott.
Yes. And Joe says he has, servant is in his DNA. His grandmother was Miss Carey, was one of the first black voters.
Okay.
And his father is a veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and his wife is a veteran. So his mother is an educator. So he comes
Right.
from a line of servants. So and
Yes.
the brother like bologna sandwiches. And I'm gonna leave that alone. So,
How you doing, Joe?
That's absolutely right. Good evening. Thank you all for having me on, Perry, Bobby. It's great to be with you tonight. Enjoying the show so far, and happy to come in and join the conversation.
absolutely.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
glad to have you here. And so we just gonna have a candid conversation. And I think one of the things we'll talk about the election later. If I can just help direct us, I think one of the biggest things coming out of this election now is education, and we got to educate voters. And if you can you at least in a nutshell highlight some of the important things that voters should be doing even now as we get into this next round of special elections.
Yeah, so one of the things I was actually happy about with the election we just had was to see how many people are starting to embrace vote by mail. And we're doing everything that we can as your elections office to make it easier for people to vote by mail, to make people feel more comfortable with it. And I hope some of that is coming through. So we've expanded the number of drop boxes that are available for folks to drop off their ballots. We're doing better in terms of communication because we're sending out text messages and emails to people to let them know the status of their ballot. And basically, we see that folks are responding to these changes and are actually starting to use that system. With this election coming up, we have an election coming up January. Election day is January 11th. You have until January 1st to request your vote by mail if you haven't done so already. And this election is going to be an extra special one because we have 3 different races going on here in Broward County. And there's also going to be 2 happening in Palm Beach County. So, but here in Broward County, we'll have the District 20 general election, along with a special primary election for State Senate District 33, which is the state Senate district that's being vacated by Senator Perry Thurston. And then we have what's called a universal primary for House District 94, which is the seat that's being vacated by Representative Bobby DuBose. Now, the reason
could you please explain a universal primary?
absolutely. So
Yeah.
what we ended up with in District 94 was that we have 4 Democrats and we don't have anybody else on the ballot. So because we have 4 Democrats and only 4 Democrats, it'll actually be open to everybody. So if you live in District 94,
And by everybody, that means
everybody who lives in District 94,
regardless of party.
regardless of party. So the same thing with the District 20 race, which a lot of folks showed up to vote on November 2nd or during the early voting period before November 2nd and found out that they couldn't participate, even though some of them, because they didn't live in District 20, but other people did live in District 20. But if you weren't registered with a party, either a Republican or a Democrat, you couldn't participate, because in Florida, we have closed primaries and you have to be a Republican or a Democrat to participate. Now with this one, in the District 20 race, as the general election, everybody will be able to vote. Then in that House district, it'll be the same thing. If you live in House District 94 and you live in District 20, you'll have both of those 2 races on your ballot for sure. Now, if you're registered as a Democrat, you will also have a primary, but only if you're registered as a Democrat, there will be a primary for that state Senate race. If you live, and this is the one that actually we have the most people in Broward County, is for that Senate District 33. But that's only if you only vote in that election if you are registered as a Democrat.
You see, it's quite a lot, and that's why I say knowing these rules are important. And so, what are some of the things that we can do to try to help this effort?
So I mean, this is the greatest, thing. Just having these opportunities to really get the word out and talk to folks and explain this, because I mean, we all understand that this is confusing. It's confusing for everybody. And we know a lot of people are going to show up and they're not going to know, what's supposed to be on their ballot. They're going to be concerned. I'll tell you this, we're going to double check and triple check everything to make sure we get it right. We're right now working on putting together a newsletter that's going to come out within the next week. That's going to go out to everybody who is participating in this election, who is eligible to vote in this election, and just explain to you specifically where you fall and what you'll be able to do, which races you'll be able to vote in and which ones you'll not be able to vote in. Now, if you want to vote in that primary election, that District 33 primary, and you're not registered as a Democrat, you have until the, I want to say the 12th or the 13th, to get that exact date, but it's 29 days before the election. So 29 days before the election, that'll be the 13th of December. You have until the 13th of December to register, to change or update your registration to become a Democrat so that you can vote in that primary.
Yeah. I have a question, and I was just thinking, just kind of brainstorming. Do you have a map of those regions? They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'm just thinking, maybe if we could just show, hey, if you live here, I mean, as I say, time out for really trying to talk this talk. As they say, you got to put it where the goats can eat it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, if we kind of give people a map, hey, look, if you live here, and just lay it out,
Yeah. No, I think that's a
those
great
are some
idea.
things that we can do.
Now there were some maps that were created. So one thing is that these districts are drawn once every 10 years. And we're actually at that point right now where our state legislature is working on drawing the new map, because we had our once in a decade census that just took place. So we just had the census. So now they're redrawing the maps. So the maps we have are from almost a decade ago. We didn't put it together with all the new digital technology that's out now. So once we get to our new districts, we're going to have some much better tools available to help people see exactly where the districts are and figure out where they live within those districts. Right now, the tool that we have available is our Broward Votes website. You can go on there and you can check your voter status. There's an actual button to check your voter status. You put in your first name, last name, date of birth, and it'll give you all your information. It'll just tell you which districts you live in. It'll give you all that information. So That's what people have to work with now. I want to get some maps and some better maps. The maps we have now, I just don't know how helpful they'll be, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Especially
I
when you look
don't
at
know.
something like District 20, that is just a weird, bizarrely drawn contraption. You know, I don't know how much it's going to help you. I had so many people, I'll tell you, a lot of people from Pembroke Pines were calling me. And the reason was that they had folks to the south of them live in Miramar who were voting in District 20. Then they had some people that were like to the north of them that were living in Fort Lauderdale that were voting. And they was like, I'm right in the middle between Miramar and Fort Lauderdale. How is it that I'm not part of this district? And that's a very valid question. It's called gerrymandering.
Yep.
And, and the district is very bizarre. So, you know, you really do
Yeah.
need to look it up and check your status and figure out where you live and which district
Yeah.
you're going.
But Brother Scott, okay, for people like me, the goat eaters. So help me to understand this whole thing about gerrymandering, the maps being drawn up. What does that mean? What does that mean to me? I want to go vote. You guys have beat me over the head all my life, telling me I got to vote. So what? I mean, I got to know what gerrymandering is. I got to know about special elections. I got to know about. So educate me. You know, an elementary voter on
Yep.
this process that has taken place.
Sure. So just to kind of go back and maybe recap everything a little bit, what we had happen back in April, Congressman Alcee Hastings, tragically passed away. Then we had a whole bunch of folks who decided to run for office. And in the state of Florida, if you are occupying an elected office and you want to run for another elected office, you have to resign in order to run. So then we had 3 of our state legislators resign to run for Congress. Now, those 3 state legislators are going to leave office. Okay, all 3 of them did not win. They didn't win the primary. They're going to leave their jobs, and we have to elect new people to fill those positions. Now we actually have a member of our Broward County School Board who is planning to resign from the school board in order to run for the state Senate. So then we're going to have basically that seat open, as well as 2 of our county commission seats, because we also had 2 county commissioners who resigned to run for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So all total, there's like 6 positions changing. 3 of those positions are going to be filled by special elections that are happening in January. January for House District 94 is going to be decided. And then in March, we're going to decide Senate District 33. Then you will have those other 3 positions on the ballot in August.
Mm-hmm. So
Has Governor DeSantis decided that whoever replaces Commissioner Holness will have to run in 22? Because I understand he has the option to allow that person to stay in for the remainder of that seat, which is 2024.
Okay, so I have heard that as well. I've seen that in the news. That is not my understanding of what the law says. My understanding of what the law, to me, it's very clear that the folks who have more than 28 months left in their term, we have to have a special election at the time of the next general election, which is coming up this November of 2022. So we're going to need to have the August first round happen, or primary election for the county commission seats, and then the general election in November. And then for the school board seat, which isn't partisan, but you basically want to leave an opportunity to have a runoff election in November. So I need to put all 3 of those races on my ballot in August. And that's what I intend to do, because that's my understanding of what the law is instructing me to do. So basically what that means is that the school board seat and District 9 of the county commission will be a special election that will be held at that time. The District 8 county commission seat was already set. That's not even a special election. That's just a normal election. District 9 of the county commission and the school board seat will be special elections, and then they'll be back on the ballot 2 years later. Whereas normally both of those seats would be 4-year seats. But they'll be basically 2 years, finish out the term of the two individuals who resigned, and then it'll be back on the ballot normal term in 2024. So I know we're getting deep in the weeds here, but it's just a lot happening, man. It's a lot to follow.
Okay, so let me understand. So right now we're looking at 3 different elections over the next, let's see, 2 and 8 is 10 months, basically.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
We have 4, so we're going to have 4 elections in 2022. All right. We have the January 11th election that we've talked about quite a bit. In March, several of the cities in Broward County are having elections in March. Plus, we'll hold the general election for that Senate seat, which does the difference between the Senate seat and the House seat is that the Senate seat did have a Republican qualified. So there's a young Black Republican who qualified to run as for the state Senate. So he'll be on that ballot in March, along with the Democratic nominee, whoever wins the Democratic primary in January. Then we're going to go on to August. In August, we'll just have our regular races that we would have normally had in August, along with those 2 special elections I already talked about. And then November is the big one. November is the big one. November is when we have a U.S. Senate seat, statewide, all these statewide cabinet positions, as well as the governor on the ballot. So we'll have all these big statewide races. It'll be similar to what we had in 2018. If you all remember that one. 2018 was a big year. It was very close. We ended up having 3 statewide recounts. So all those races came down to very, very close. And most of them, I'll just say it ended up becoming a pretty tumultuous time for the elections office, here in Broward County. So, it'll be a similar race like that coming up in 2022. So,
and we did forget a race. We did forget about Commissioner Barbara Sharif's race.
So that one's just a regular election, though.
It's just a regular election. Okay, so that one will be.
Commissioner Sharif would have been on the ballot this year.
Anyway, okay, right.
If I could now that again, I want this extremely elementary, kindergarten, if you would. Okay, you mentioned something about we're familiar with a term called gerrymandering and maps. So what is my role as a voter? Do I have any say so in the drawing of the maps, or what? And then by the time all of these elections come around, will I be still voting in the same precinct?
So I will say, there have been some maps that have come out and have been circulating around. When it comes to the congressional districts and the state legislative districts, those are drawn by the state legislature. And they've already put out some drafts, making your voice heard, not necessarily the representatives that we have here locally. If you feel like there's some changes, you can reach out to your local representatives. But the real problem would be folks in other parts of the state that are actually controlling the legislature. But really where you might have the most opportunity to make an impact would be with our local districts. So if you live in a city that has single member districts, looking at how they're drawing those lines for your city, looking at how they're drawing the county commission lines. Now, I've also had a chance to see some of the maps for how they plan to redraw the county commission seats. So I think those are now out there for people to see. Take a look at that and see what you see and see if that's something, if there's anything that bothers you about the way they drew the lines. A lot of times you can see with those drawings what the statistics are.
Where are those maps, Joe?
Huh?
Yeah. Where are those?
Which ones you mean, the state ones or the local ones?
The county commission, right? The drafts.
Commission. So those maps haven't been in the press yet?
I haven't seen anything in the black press.
Okay. I can't say for sure where to find them. I will say that I've already seen some drafts, so I know the drafts are out there. I guess they're not getting as much traction as the as the other maps are probably
Joe, we're gonna be real honest. They not getting any traction. So we need help. We need to build this bridge here, because
I'll tell you this: when it comes to the local maps, they're being drawn by folks at FIU, and
FI who?
and actually, those aren't the ones we really got to worry about. It's the state legislative and the congressional races. Now, the ones that I have not seen yet that I think are critically important would be the school board. I have not seen the school board districts yet. And if I were to tell somebody that there is a map that we really need to pay attention to, it would be the school board districts.
Okay, stop right there, Joe. Hold that for one moment. Hold right there. Okay. Sure. Now, so these maps that we need to pay attention to, we have the possibility of the person who can really assist us it has resigned or about to be. So who do we talk to? Who do we talk to on the county level? Who do we talk to on the state level when these people, the seats have been vacated until the 11th? So who do we talk to? Who do the people talk to?
So I'll tell you this. One thing is that Broward County in the last 10 years has become more diverse. And a lot of us live in these other people's districts. We don't all live in the district of the person. And by the way, she's not resigning until March. So the maps will be done well before she's off of the school board. Just for one thing. That's one thing. And I believe, and she's the chair.
What was that date, Joe?
As far as when she's going to resign or when the maps are
due?
She'll have to resign in time for the March election.
Okay.
March 8th, March 9th. Let me take a look real quick at the March.
Okay.
So it has to be, so she'll have to, before qualifying, or not before qualifying, but basically she'll have to submit her resignation. Her resignation will take effect the March 9th election, basically. So it'll have to be like the March 9th or March 10th, right around there. So she's in office till March, and the maps will be done before then. So basically, we do still have representation on the school board, but also everybody who's on the school board is, has to answer to their constituents and has to be reelected. There's only so much they can do to sort of tweak those maps to keep the same makeup that the school board has now. I think if you look at the makeup of the school board and you look at Broward County, you can see that the representation isn't right. I think that's obvious. Okay. I think the county commission, based on the maps that I've seen, the county commission is about to get a little darker. But the school board, I haven't seen those yet. And I have a little bit of concern, and I want to make sure that, that basically they should be tracking what I think the county commission. I mean, they should, they should have some maps that are built to reflect the diversity of Broward County. And I think when you even look at the way the districts were drawn 10 years ago, even in the county commission districts, you can see, you can look at these maps and see if people are playing games, because the shapes just look funny. Like, why don't you just have like regular looking shapes on the map?
Oh, I thought you said some excrements look funny. But you said the
shapes. Yeah, the shapes.
Well, but it is that too.
You start seeing a bunch of zigzags, and it's like, what are y'all trying to accomplish with all these zigzags? Why can't we just do like straight, like some blocks that look normal? If you just do that, you're probably going to get a basic something that looks like Broward County. When you start doing all these zigzags and twisting all around and count this neighborhood, don't count that neighborhood, that's when you're starting to play games, and that's what we don't want. If you just kind of divide it up and make it look like normal districts and get the population about right, we're pretty spread out now in Broward County, and you'll get some good results.
Joe, you seem to be a pretty accessible person, and that's good. We need that. How are your outreach efforts paying off? I can go back as far as Miriam Oliphant and before then, Miriam started to do some real outreach stuff, and Dr. Snipes came in and did, so how is your outreach efforts paying off?
I'll say that with this most recent election, I'm not happy with the turnout. I don't think the turnout is where we wanted it to be.
Okay.
I think I leaned a little bit on the 13 candidates who were out there running around and thought that they were going to drive more people to the polls. I will take a much more active role in this January election, because I know if this November election only got about 17%, I'm concerned about how low that turnout might be in January. That we might see something like 10% turnout or something like that if I don't do more to get out there and make sure people are aware of just how important these positions are.
And you raise up a good point, and want to offer you this. Please explain to people your role in elections. I think that's very important, especially in this climate, on both sides,
right?
Not to be too in the weeds about it, but at the end of the day, this is what you do.
There's a balance that has to be struck, right? So one thing is we're responsible for getting people registered. So the biggest thing, my job is to make sure that access is equal to everybody in the community, right? So we want to make sure that everybody can get registered to vote,
right,
and that it's easy for everybody to get registered to vote. And then we want it to be easy for everybody to vote. Now, when it comes down to like motivating the population to actually turn out, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. And I'll tell you why. When it comes to this election that we just had, or really any election, a lot of it is that you want the elected official. Part of what the elected official is that you need to have a constituency, right? You need to have a community, a group of people that are behind you, that are showing up to vote for you and put you in office. So if I'm out there as the supervisor trying to drive people to the polls, who does that help? I have to make sure that my efforts are being done in a way that is completely neutral.
Right.
So that I'm not helping one candidate more than I'm helping another candidate. It has to be across the board, even Steven. And that's where it becomes a delicate balance for me as the supervisor to try to drive turnout on election day. So for me, I think a lot of it to me is focusing on getting people registered. Right. Get people registered to vote, do it in a fair, flat, across the board way. My biggest thing is high school voter registration. So I'm in the high schools. I'm trying to that's our biggest group of new voters. All those people who are going to turn 18 this year. All the people that are going to turn 18 before Election Day in 2022. That's my biggest opportunity to add more people to the polls. And if I'm going after that group as a collective, then every candidate has an equal shot at appealing to the youth and saying, hey, we know that Joe Scott is trying to get these high school kids registered to vote. I'm going to go out and speak to them. I'm going to talk to things that they care about. Right?
Joe,
so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about in outreach.
Right.
Great. You mentioned 18-year-olds. Okay, if I turn 18 the day of elections, can I register to vote? I can vote.
Absolutely. So you can actually register to vote at 16 in the state of Florida. So it's called pre-registration. So you can get pre-registered, and then if you are 18 by election day, you can vote.
Okay.
So you should vote. You can, go ahead and vote. Your vote by mail ballot is tabulated on election day. So voting by mail is a great way to go. If your birthday's on election day, if that happens to be, otherwise, wait till your 18th birthday and go vote on your 18th birthday if you're going to vote in person.
It's a hell of a present. Okay, we got a listener, a viewer, Mimi Robinson. She seems to be knowledgeable of this process because she did say that FIU was hired by the county to draw the maps. So I would ask those viewers who are knowledgeable in this area to lend your hand. Joe, can they volunteer? Is that something can be done? How does a person how can a person get involved?
Now, just to be clear, though, that's the county commission, not the school board. I'm
not
sure what is happening with the school board maps.
Okay.
And that's the one, which I know a lot of people don't necessarily differentiate between the county and the school board. But they are separate entities. So the school board maps are the ones that I think I would love to know, what's happening with those, because I haven't seen those yet.
Okay.
But as far as getting involved, I would say you have to reach out to those elected officials. So reach out to your county commissioner, reach out to your school board member, and let them know that you're interested in seeing or learning more about how that process is unfolding.
Is that more of a necessity to go to our elected officials, or is that something we can do from a community effort? Because I'm just being honest, because if I go to an elected official, I'm only going to get as much help from that elected official as that person sees this as being something tangible and worthwhile. Let's just be real.
Yeah, the commissioners and the school board members ultimately vote to approve those maps or not approve those maps. So they may have a third party drawing or creating different options, but those elected officials on that board, and those are the ones who ultimately approve or disapprove of the maps. So, so at the end of the day, going to the vendor wouldn't be, I don't see that as being necessarily helpful, because I definitely think that the vendors tend to try their best and present different options. And then I believe the people on the board are going to pick which option they feel like is the best. And hopefully they're looking at the overall community and looking at the county as a whole and what's going to benefit the county as a whole, and not just looking at their own map and seeing which one they like best for their own district.
Okay. A couple of years ago, Perry introduced me to a part of voting that I never was a part of. The tickets, the tabulations that are posted.
Yeah, poll tapes.
Yeah, you poll tape. So if our organizations or homeowners groups or whatever, if you would create within your meetings an opportunity to understand this process of elections, even Joe, I'm pretty sure you're willing to perhaps go out, not every night of the week, but sometime to make yourself accessible to those who want to learn, right?
Absolutely, I would love to.
Yeah. And that whole poll tape, and Joe was involved really in some of the early beginning. It's just been a position, and I understand this climate that we're coming out of, but it was never, and I should say, at least from my intent, never for it to be considered a contentious relationship with the Supervisor of Elections office, but one in which we worked in concert. That if your community, and again, it goes to the philosophy that all politics are local, it should be in our best interest to know what the turnout in our precincts. I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's anything. And we know that in every process there are glitches. I don't think that there's any intent. I just know that the Supervisor of Elections office has a whole lot of intended work to do, that looking for some of these gotchas, sometimes it just does happen. And if I think that we can create a better relationship, that we can get away from this contentious attitude that we have about voting. I'm suspect, but I don't think that I'm dealing with suspect people.
So let me address that a little bit, because that's actually, I think you're bringing up a great point. And one thing we saw with the 2020 elections is this new climate of challenging the election system in a way that we didn't see in the past, right? And it's not necessarily challenging the election system with the intent to find out the truth of what really happened. It's challenging the election system with the intent of getting the outcome that I want. So you'll have one side in one place yelling during a recount, stop the recount, stop counting. Why? Because the person they like is up. So stop the recount. What are we recounting for? In another place where your side is down, it's like count every vote. So they out there, just fighting, not for the truth, but for a particular outcome to the election. Now, the reason I bring that up is because we saw this unfold. We saw the prototype to this happen in Broward County in 2018, where we had these 3 statewide recounts happening, and you had this big crowd of people outside the elections office here in Broward County and causing all kind of ruckus and all kinds of trouble out there. Not because they wanted to know the truth, but because they wanted to push a certain outcome. Now, with Broward County having been almost in the national spotlight more than once, I think it's understandable that some of our veterans, some of our people who've been around the longest, who know the most about elections, who are our best trained people, might be a little gun shy. Might be a little bit nervous. And that nervousness and dealing with people who don't have good intentions, right? You're dealing with people who don't have good intentions. So it causes you to kind of close up. And you don't want to be that open and transparent because you don't think, if I'm open and transparent, they're just trying to play gotcha.
Right.
We're working to change that culture in Broward County. We're working to be open, transparent, and easy. Not because we're perfect. We are not, and we're never going to be. But whatever happens, happens, and we're going to tell you the truth. We're going to be open and honest about it. We're going to explain what happened and why it happened, and that's all it's going to be. And you go find anywhere where a perfect election happened and nothing ever went wrong. You're not going to find it.
Right.
There's problems everywhere. But that doesn't mean that we have to close up and hide what's going on. We need to be open and just tell the truth.
Yeah.
We try
and
to tell them what happened.
Right. And to that point, we can't put all that responsibility on you. This is a shared responsibility. At the end of the day, these are our votes. And that's a message that, I think, helps the community understand that it's the majority of us will just go cast a ballot. For those of us who are interested, there are some other ways to help bring some assurances to our communities, because again, we don't want any misplaced finger pointing. Because that doesn't help, and it just distracts us from the strategy. So I know we're getting close to time, but Joe, I had some questions for you. Okay. Oh, we have a question from one Miss Gloria Lewis.
That is a wonderful question from Miss Gloria Lewis.
Yeah. Can he please explain what is the difference between the overseas ballots and military ballots? Great question.
Absolutely. I love this question because this was a hot topic with the District 20 race that came up, because when it comes down to 5 votes, we're looking at everything and scrutinizing everything. So here's what's really important for people to know. There was this act called the Uakava Act, which is mostly something that people think about in terms of military. But the fact of the matter is what this law did was it made it so that voters who are living overseas or who are overseas on election day get an extra 10 days to get their ballot back. So most ballots have to be back to us by 7 p.m. on election night. But if the voter is overseas, they get an extra 10 days. Now, one of the things that we do to make sure that we're in compliance with the Uakava Act is that we give some special attention to all of our active duty military people and their dependents. So they get some extra special attention. They do not get the extra 10 days unless they are overseas. And being active duty is not the same thing as being overseas. Almost all of our active duty people, the vast majority of active duty military people, are in the United States. It's a relatively small number of people who are overseas at any given time. So,
from a military man.
Yes. And by the way, myself in 2008, I voted from Iraq. And I didn't do it right. I didn't do it right. So they sent the ballots to my wife, who was at Fort Benning, Georgia. My wife sent the ballots to me in Iraq. I sent the ballot back, or she sent my ballot. I sent the ballot back to my wife at Fort Benning, Georgia. She mailed it to Broward County. It made it on time, and my vote was counted. However, had my vote not counted, they would have had no evidence whatsoever, because I never told the Broward County Supervisor of Elections that I was overseas. And they have to have something. You have to say that you're overseas. You have to provide an overseas address. You have to give us something that lets us know you're overseas. Otherwise, you are not an overseas voter. I cannot assume you're overseas just because your ballot is late. That's not what the law says. And if I were to do that, if I were to assume that you're overseas just because your ballot is late, guess what? Somebody is going to sue, and the judge is going to throw that out anyway. It's not going to do anybody any good, okay? And it's going to make Broward County look bad because we broke the law.
Okay.
So that's what people just need to understand. You have to actually be overseas. You have to let us know that you're overseas. Then you get the extra 10 days.
Okay. Suppose, just suppose, I have a Lear jet. I can fly around the world. And I had a bunch of ballots that I want to take overseas and get them extra 10 days. Is there a postmark time due on those ballots, or what? How does that go?
So it is either the postmark or the date when you sign and date your ballot. And the problem with the postmark is this: some ballots that come from overseas will get postmarked once they reach the United States, which could be after Election Day. But if it was mailed before Election Day, it'll count, even if it has a postmark that's after Election Day. So it is the earlier date between the date that's on the envelope or the postmark date. So when you go to sign your envelope, you date it when you sign. You know how you sign and date? For that date that you put on the envelope, if that's before Election Day, your ballot will count.
Okay.
I'm sure we missed something. I know time.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, but I had a couple of there's been quite a few changes in our state laws, and I know, Joe, you have made the circuit talking about these, but that was a 48-page document. And so I was just going through and just wanted to get look at some of these and get your opinion on them. One statute says it prohibits people who would help others drop off vote by mail ballots for processing more than 2 vote by mail ballots other than their own, unless they belong to immediate family members. This is primarily one of the things that this affects is sites where you have voting stations in assisted living complexes. How does please explain that and the ramifications around that?
Yeah, so one thing that's really important is that we had 287 ballots that were postmarked in this very low turnout election that was decided by 5 votes. We had 287 ballots that were postmarked before Election Day that showed up late. Let that sink in. 287 that were postmarked before. So now you're trying to make it harder for people to use the drop boxes, for us to have like systems where people who are maybe busy, people who have to work long hours, people that are disabled, people who just don't have time to get to a drop box. You're going to make it so the only option they have is to put it in the mail. I think that it's hostile towards working people, towards disabled people. And our governor just said they're putting another voting bill together for this next session. So they're not done trying to suppress our votes. They're coming back for more. They want to create a new law enforcement agency to actually go out there and harass voters. And the governor said he doesn't understand why we have drop boxes to begin with. So they're coming back for more. They're coming back to try to restrict our rights even more, and make it even harder for folks to vote. And we just can't let it happen. We really got to stand up and say something and make sure that they don't make it even harder for us to vote.
Yeah. One of the and to be clear, some of these, while laughable, I think there are a few that are quite needed. especially around security, which is already happening, by the way. So, I mean, but one of the ones I found interesting, like I said, is the fact that it limits, Bobby, let's say you running from the office and you got a couple of ballots from your sisters and you want to take them in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Joe, are they saying that you can't take any more than your ballot and one other ballot?
No, because it's the immediate family.
Okay, so immediate family.
It's your ballot, your immediate family, plus 2.
Oh, okay. So I come from a large family. It's 13 of us.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can turn in 14 ballots plus 2 more.
Yes. The state did not provide us with any DNA kits to do on the spot at the drop box.
Right.
So we're going to do the best we can to comply with the law, but it has to be your ballot, your immediate family, and then you can do 2 additional ballots on top of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so how you determine, right, you're saying you can't determine immediate family, so I guess you're just saying last name or what? Not saying.
Listen, we're there to let's make sure that people know what the rules are. And, and then I guess the governor's going to have his new police force out there to harass folks. But, I would tell folks that, for now, that's what the law is. And what we'll do is we'll educate folks and make sure people know so that they can comply.
Okay.
And I believe people will comply once they know what the rules are. So if you say that these people are your immediate family, then we believe you.
Right. I agree. Now, I'm not asking you to be a renegade on this one, but it does say that if you, let's say there's a drop box here that isn't manned. Explain that one to us. They want you to man a drop box 24 hours a day because anytime that drop box is open, it has to be manned.
Yeah. So basically, if they find a drop box and it isn't manned, I will be fined $25,000, which is just very remarkable. Because I have an idea. Some of the stuff that's in this law is clearly unconstitutional. Will probably be struck down in court. If you are a legislator and you vote for a law that is unconstitutional, you should get fined $25,000.
Exactly.
Fine legislators who vote for unconstitutional laws, $25,000.
Yeah. Now, I was almost willing to say, let's put up the reward. Keep every ballot box open. We're just gonna pay the $25,000. But okay. There's also this one.
How many times can they find me?
How many times?
That's a good question. They just put drop boxes all over the place and just leave them open. I'm like, hey.
Okay, give me 25.
We do a GoFundMe.
We got a question from one of the viewers, but this is pertaining to the Opelika post office. Let's get that to Jim. What can be done to improve the Opelika post office? And that's coming from a Michael Robinson.
Michael, good. Another fantastic question. I was stunned on Election Day on November 2nd. When I went down to pay a visit to the Opelika facility just to kind of see how things were going. Did not imagine that they were just going to straight up disrespect me and not allow me in the building. And not beyond just not letting me in the building. I mean, were extremely disrespectful to me as well at the same time. There's definitely some changes that need to be done with the Postal Service. Their attitude and their lack of customer service, their lack of transparency, of basic transparency, is disturbing. So I have already been in touch with our members of Congress on this, and in some cases, or at least with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, has been all over this for a while. Actually, has been dealing with service issues with the Postal Service for a while, and is very eager to help improve this situation. So that's what we are going to be focused on that in the upcoming year. My goal is that by November, we have a much better process in place, that we don't have ballots that are postmarked before Election Day coming in late. I had one ballot that was postmarked October 21st that did not count because it got to us too late. It can't happen. Okay, the ballots need special attention. The ballots need to get back in. This is about democracy. This is about people's right to vote. We can't let it happen. It's got to get fixed.
Yeah. Joe, here another law that requires third-party voter registration groups to inform people that they can also register online and sets tighter deadlines for when registration cards must be turned in. Want to understand this because we do know that there are a lot of, sororities, fraternities. Does that apply to them as well? Or is it that you have to specify that you are a voter registration group? Because it's not so much for them. I just foresee someone trying to set up one of these organizations by saying, ooh, they didn't tell me this, or bringing in some chaos. Because, again, chaos is in the system.
Yeah. So one thing that's really important about that is that applies if you are collecting voter registration forms. If you're helping people to get registered to vote by just assisting them and they're sending the registration forms in themselves, then you're not acting as a third party organization. Okay. So we actually created a tool here in Broward County where the people who are filling out, if you're doing it on paper, which, by the way, the paper applications are really for people who don't have a state ID or a driver's license. If you have a state ID or a driver's license, it is very easy to do this from your phone. And our new voter registration tool has a QR code that'll take you right to a landing page that'll make it easy for you to both register to vote and also for you to do your sign up for your vote by mail. Okay, so basically we're making it simple. You can do it from your phone, and if you're helping people do it from their phones, you don't need to worry about the third-party voter registration organization. Mm-hmm. You're giving them this form that, by the way, in Broward County, it's postage paid. You don't need an envelope. It's already filled out to come back to my office. So you fill it out, you seal it up, you drop it in any mailbox, and it comes back to us. If they do it that way, no need for third-party voter registration. So all this stuff we came up with to counteract that part of SB 90, that part of the new voter suppression law, because all these people are out there just trying to do good things in the community, trying to get people registered to vote. And if that's what you want to do, just don't collect the form. Okay? Just don't collect the form. Yeah. If you are collecting the form, then yes, you need to comply with all that stuff. Right. Now, one other thing I did in addition is that I'm partnering with a 501c3 to create that same tool for the rest of the state of Florida. So we have one for Broward County, and then there'll be a separate one that'll be for the rest of the state of Florida. The one that's for outside of Broward County, you will need to put postage on it, and you'll need to put your supervisor's address on it, but you don't need an envelope, and it's all set up to make it easy for you to get it back in, and also to make it easy for you to do it online if you have a driver's license or a state ID.
Okay, cool. Okay, we got one. I had a couple more, but this one I thought is funny and just kind of really wanted your opinion on it because it says a lot. They have a new law that requires any candidate running with no party affiliation to affirm that they have not been registered with a political party in the previous 365 days. I understand what that says, but it also pretty much ensures, that, young candidates who are not familiar and may decide to run as an independent will not have that ability if they don't do it in time, which I think is really crazy. Because I can become a Democrat and run. I could become a Democrat and run right away. You're not giving me 365 days to be a Democrat or a Republican.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just feels really unconstitutional. I mean, I'm not an attorney. So I can't say for sure, but it seems really unconstitutional to tell me that I can't run for office, because I changed my party affiliation in the last 365 days. That might be the time that you're most motivated to run. I know a whole bunch of people, and this is probably why they passed this, by the way, who aren't big fans of our former president. And they may have been Republicans their whole life, right up until the time that, this new president comes in and causes them to say, I can't be a part of this party anymore. And by the way, I'm more motivated than ever, and I want to go run for office. So I think that is part of the reason that it happened, and I think it's just unconstitutional.
It is. It is. And the last one, and I really would like to get a lawyer to help answer us on this one. There's a law that when you register to vote, it asks people registering to vote to affirm the following language: I affirm that I am not a convicted felon, or if I am, my right to vote has been restored. Now that, again, understanding English language is poorly worded, because whenever you use a negative to try to explain something, you're going to get in trouble. Okay, they ask you to affirm that you're not a convicted felon. What I need to understand from a lawyer is, once I have completed the terms of my, of my conviction, minus the legal fees, you are off of paper, as they say. So I'm trying to figure out, if they're saying I'm not a convicted felon, if I've been past my sentence for 10 years, I've been out of jail, I'm back, I'm a productive citizen, 10 years later, I'm not a convicted felon. Because it says I am. In the present tense, I'm not a convicted felon. I'm an ex-felon. Or ex, however you want to say it, former. And if I am, again, I'm not. My right to vote has been restored. What they are people who are caught in this black hole. They're not convicted felons, but their rights have not been restored. That's bad language. And I think it needs to be tested. I mean, unless a lawyer can say that you're still a convicted felon, but in the present tense, I'm not.
That's good. I mean, hey,
Well,
for most people who are registering to vote, most people out there, and my understanding is that it's about 80% of people who have exited our criminal justice system are free and clear and don't owe any fines or fees. And if you haven't been convicted of a sex crime or this couple of exceptions, but then your rights have been restored. Right? That's what Amendment 4 did. Amendment 4 is a constitutional amendment that says once you have served out your sentence, your rights are restored.
Right.
So I believe people should go with confidence on the fact that if they are free and clear, if they've completed their sentence, if they've paid their fines and fees, your rights are restored.
Right. Okay. So I just wonder.
I'm kind of I'm kind of silent on these issues. You guys are educating me, so.
But and here's one more though, Bobby. Yeah, here's one more that I think is really important, because here we have, people move around a lot, especially now with these high ass rent prices and everything else. A new law requires the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles to help the Department of State in identifying changes in residence addresses on a driver's license or identification card. The Department of State must report each to the appropriate supervisor of election. Here's my question: what were they doing previously? If you saying you're gonna do this now, what in the hell was going on?
Yeah, no, that happens. I guess sometimes they update that in some cases they'll change the statute, and that's something that you just don't even hear that much about, because it's like, well, we were already doing that. In some cases there were things that were written into that law that was already happening, and it just wasn't. It wasn't even worth discussing. It was like, okay, because there's other things that we need to talk about. That one is like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it just made me scratch my head. I'm like, what was going on that you guys now? But I understand you had to codify it in the law, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bobby,
Well,
I mean, we've been going.
Yeah, it's more to it than a notion. Joe, if there's, let's say, one thing that you would stress for voters and non-voters alike as it pertains to elections, what would that be?
I would say that these government budgets, our elected officials have to decide how the money's getting spent and how these government budgets are going to be allocated, how resources are getting allocated. Now, do you think they're going to focus more on allocating resources to people who vote or to people who don't vote? Who's going to get that access to those resources? Okay. If you want to make sure that your community is taken care of, you have to vote, because we know who votes and who doesn't vote. And all elected officials know that and pay attention to that. If you want those resources to flow your way, vote.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Great.
Perry B.
Joe, man, appreciate you so much. And one of the things I can say about Joe and his race, they say iron sharpens iron. Joe was in a tough race. Knew a couple of the other candidates in the race. There were some good candidates, all with different views. But he was also in a runoff race that was very slim. But it was one of those things that I think helps to solidify and should bring us calm, because you're better tested in your character and in what brought you here. And I think that that's important, and that's something that we can continue to look for in our other candidates. I mean, every time you meet Joe just smiling and and ready to have a good conversation. And we need that from our elected leaders, that they know how to communicate with us. And so, I don't always, people like to say I'm always batting people over the head, but I do know how to give accolades, and this brother is worth the accolades. And so I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate it, Perry. Again. Definitely, happy to work with you guys. Happy to be, part of anything we can do to help communicate and get these issues in front of our community. And you guys do such a great job of that. And so I'm happy to do anything I can to support the paper and to keep you guys moving forward.
Okay, and we appreciate that. Just to piggyback on what Perry was saying, Joe is a special person. He's humble, but don't let his humility fool you. He's a veteran, and he didn't get wounded. He didn't get wounded by a pencil in his hand.
No bone spurs in his foot.
No. He's a veteran. Okay, and I also want to say that it's Thanksgiving. We won't be on next Thursday. If you got any extra food, feed somebody. Let's really get back to the sense of humanity. These have been some trying times for all of us. When we see things happening daily in the news, what we may consider to be senseless murders and crimes, some hideous stuff, let's get back to the basics. Let's feed somebody. God comforts us so we can comfort others. And in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Mr. Joe Scott, you matter. And we certainly appreciate you educating us and our listeners. We want everybody to have a happy Thanksgiving. And when we come back to show after that, we've asked Dr. Osgood to join us. Miss Commissioner Barbara Sharif said she wanted to come back. So we will continue to get involved with conversations that we need to grow as a people.
And we've reached out.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't mean to interrupt you. But we have also extended invitations for candidates in the CD20 race to both. Well, not both. There are some independents, and we're going to reach out. But two of the main candidates in that race, we've reached out to both, and we anticipate them coming, and we hope that Mr. what's his name? Minor will join us.
Okay. Thank you. From we had a couple of people applauding the conversation. I saw Mr. Kemp and I saw Mr. Locke. Thank you very much. And y'all, please be safe. Do something for somebody else. And even if it is a ball of confusion.
For me, and I'll set you free.
Well,
The only person talking about love and brother is the preacher. And
with that being said, happy Thanksgiving. God bless you all until we do it again. Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Good to see you.